Hi, everybody. It's me, Jared, here with another episode of Yoko Co Live. And if you notice, we've got one returning Yoko Co team member and then one new Yoko Co team member. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. We're going to learn a little bit. We're hopefully going to smile. We're going to laugh. If you have questions, you should probably post those if you're watching live. Even if you're not watching live, you can still post those questions and we'll respond and get to answering those as quickly as possible. Anyway, Sarah, Sarah, how about you go first? You want to give a brief introduction, let everybody know who you are, what you do, your social security number, anything you want to share, just feel free.
Okay. So I'm Sarah Lewis, and I've been here with Yoko Co for a little over 10 years, and I'm basically one of the nerds on staff. I love working with code, now working with AI, figuring out how to solve business problems with technical solutions, especially anything that involves freeing people from tedious work by automating it. That's my favorite thing ever. And what else? I'm in San Diego. And yeah, I love geeking out on what is the future of stuff. So we're going to be talking about AI today, and that's exciting to me.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. Jazz, first timer, joining us for Yoko Co Live. Introduce yourself, and then we'll get into the fun parts of it. But tell us a little bit about yourself, Jazz.
Yes, and my social security number is, I'll just
yeah, we'll just put that on the bottom scroll as the entire episode goes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, my name is Jazz, and I do UX strategy at Yoko Co. So everything related to asking questions, research, who's your audience, what does your audience need, and interpreting that into the information architecture, basically making sure that your website content serves that your user needs. And then at the end of the day, it's about everything that is related to strategy. What's your end goal? What's your short-term and long-term goal? And we interpret that into the content and the way how content is organized. And Sarah likes coding. I don't like coding, but I like working with Sarah. So I think it makes sense.
It's a good trade-off. I think everybody likes working with Sarah, but everybody likes working with you too. I feel like everybody likes working with everybody else. And it feels weird to say that out loud, but it's very true for our team. I've started calling our team crew ever since the Artemis came back and Joanna shared that message about a crew. I've just, in conversations I've had, I've been like, yeah, we're a tight crew. This is a good crew of people. But you're right.
I love it. I love working with these people. So, we don't like to have to like technical part of it, but we have people who like to do that. So it's,
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, welcome. We're glad that you're here. Excited to hear your insights. So this Yoko Co Live was kind of spearheaded by these two wonderful individuals because last week they gave a very in-depth, very technical training on schema and on the importance of how schema works for part of it was the growth team and then a few other individuals from the Yoko Co crew as well. We were able to join, and then at the tail end, there were a few of us that were like, "Oh, this is a great Yoko Co Live opportunity right here." So, you are all, if you're watching live, you're getting the best of the best, the freshest of the freshest, which is a phrase that I think kids use because no cap, right? Do they still say that? Is that still a thing?
I think for real, no cap may be passe at this point. But
all right, well, I tried. I'm 40 plus years old, so I no matter what I said, I would be wrong. So, okay, let's jump into it. Let's get right into the fun conversation. Jazz, this is your first time, so I'm going to just throwing the ball over to you, so to speak. The way that I understand it is that a lot of organizations that are out there, they're assuming that if their website exists, if it's out there, if it's live, if it's on the interwebs, then people in the world can find it, which on a basic level, I get it. Yeah, it's on the website or it's online, it's out there, it's living, it's doing its thing. But things are changing. and it feels like it's impacting how kind of it about how it actually works. It's not as straightforward as probably it used to be. So this is a big question, but I think this is going to be really great for folks that are watching. But can you walk us through what's different now versus kind of how it was a few years ago, and then why it matters? I think it's kind of a double-sided question, double-sided coin, if you will. But if you could walk us through that, I think that would set like a really, really great foundation for this conversation.
Yes, exactly like you said. The way how people are searching for information and how they're consuming information is changing. And that's because we have the middleman now, which is called AI, right? So in the way how we source information like 3 years ago, 4 years ago was like in a traditional SEO, we used to put keywords into the Google search, and then we used to get results with the links, and we used to go to the links and check most of them to be able to gather content about or context about what we're looking for. So we used to gather information, like answers to our questions. And in that way, if I had a website, for me, it was important to get clicks not only on my page, but also on the call to actions to get people to read my content, right? And that will tell Google that my content is useful, and Google would make it even, help me to rank better. But now, the way how people search for information is they're also looking through AI tools like ChatGPT, right? And what we expect is we formulate a clear question, and we expect clear, direct answer to our question. For example, what does Yoko Co do, and what's their best practice and such, right? I expect short summarized answer and recommendations and all that good stuff, right? So now what has become important is not only to get clicks like in a traditional SEO, but also to get direct answers. And we are trying to make sure that not only humans understand our content, but also AI understands our content, because AI is now the middleman, right, between a user, the audience, right, and then the organization or a website that is providing, the organization information. So the middleman, AI, is collecting the information for our websites, digesting it, and then surfacing it to the human being. So now we need to make sure that AI can read the information correctly. But the language of AI is different, right? It's not like the human language. It's the language of codes. It's the language of structures. So that's what's changing. So that's when we come to the importance of, okay, we need to do extra things like schema markups and making sure that we have good structures on the website. So that's where we are.
Okay, so let's take it a little step further here. And Sarah, I'm going to get you involved in this as well, because I think there's a good balance here between your expertise versus Jazz's expertise. But let's say that we've got an association. I mean, we work with associations primarily, but it feels like this conversation is going to be applicable to if you have an association website or a nonprofit website or a for-profit website or just a website. Everything that we're going to be talking about here, you can take information from and apply to effectively. But let's say, for conversation's sake, you've got a good website. It's an association website. It's a beautiful website. You've got an events page, resources, staff directory, the whole shebang. And then I ask an AI agent, we'll ask Claude, right now, what is my organization? What does my organization do? Or when the next conference is, kind of similar, Jazz, to what you're saying about Yoko Co. Hey, what does Yoko Co do? Fill in the blank here. What would it actually see? Because it feels like it's different than maybe what we see from the human perspective. And I think that's kind of where the fork in the road separates quite drastically of, hey, we see this, so we think this information is going to be there, but what it actually sees is this thing over here. So it's kind of a two-part question. One, can you help us understand what it actually sees? And then two, how would we even know if it got it wrong? Or could you help kind of figure out how to redirect it to make sure that information is correct? Two very big questions. Whoever would like to go first can go first.
Yeah. I will just continue with what I said earlier so that, I could also pass it over to Sarah, who would know everything related to like details, right? So again, the way how human beings see information is we can go into a page, we can read text, and we can collect the context that this is a conference page, and the conference will take place on the 22nd of October 2026, and it will take place in Chicago, and this is how much it will cost me, right? So we read the text and we're able to understand, and we don't need to pay attention to everything extra on the page, right? And we leave, right? But the way how AI would look at this content is they just see a plain text. But they also see that there is navigation, there's footer, there is the sidebar, and there is everything else. And there is the event date, but also there is the published date, and there is the date for another event, right? So they see all those dates. And for AI, it's hard to understand which one is the date unless we say, hey, this is the date of the event, and this is the organizer, and this is the link through which you can register for it, right? So again, with schema, when we add the extra coding in the backend, we would add those labels. Labels is basically that schema markup extra coding layer, right? So where we add labels into the structures and the areas, okay, this is an event page, this is not a book, this is not an article, this is not a resource, this is an event that immediately communicates to AI how to read this page. And this the event is conference, and so we add the label into like next to everything, next to the start date, end date, the time, the venue. So in that way, AI doesn't have to do guesswork, right? When it does the guesswork, it can put all those 3 dates, and then at the end of the day, give the wrong date, right? So we want AI to not only to be able to understand, but understand correctly and get the fresh information, not an outdated information. If we don't add the last update information, then it's likely is going to recommend the information that has been, originally published like 10 years ago, and maybe that's not applicable anymore. So things like this matter a lot in making sure that AI is getting the correct information, fresh information, and it's able to recommend that to the human beings. Sarah.
Yeah, so I went and actually, it took a little while to find some good examples yesterday, because I wanted to show examples of times where it gets it right, but also examples of times where it gets it wrong. And this isn't to throw anybody under the bus. This is common issues with it can misinterpret information, or if it can't read the information, it may give the wrong information. So here's an example, and we kind of are looking at like what kind of questions you might ask an AI, or more specifically, your people who are looking for an organization like you might ask an AI. And so a good example of this is what does this organization do? Who's the leadership of this organization? But we were focusing specifically on events because it's an easy one to understand, and it applies to a lot of contexts. And for associations, annual conferences are a crucial part of what associations do. And so it's really important that the AI not only know that it exists, but know what the details are about it. So if people are asking for information, and I do this a lot, I will ask AI, like, what should I know about in my space? I'm very into crafting as like my side thing. And so I'm like, what craft conferences should I know about? And so it's something where I may not even know about the organization, but that's how I discover the organization. So for these examples, I was asking about different events. And so this is one that is a great answer, right? So I ask, when is the American Institute of Architects next annual conference? And you can see this is the AI overview from Google. So when you're trying this out for your own organization, I think starting with Google is a great place to look to see what Gemini behind the scenes is coming up with. You can use ChatGPT, you can use Claude, you can use Perplexity. Anything that you like to use will give you a pretty good idea of how well AI understands the content you already have on your website. So in this case, you can see it really gets it quite clearly, right? It knows the name of the conference, it knows the dates of the conference, it's got the location. Further down, it even includes details about the specific things that are happening at this conference, and it even has future conference dates, because all of that information is on the American Institute of Architects website. And it's not just on the website, it's on the website in a way that AI can parse. It's properly labeled, like Jazz was saying. Our next slide shows an outdated answer. So this is one where basically the information is clearly on the website. If you look at the section on the right there, the website has information about both a boot camp training coming up and about an annual training conference. But AI, when I ask about it, says that it's giving me dates from 2025, even though this information is on their website. So that's clearly a case of the information is there. And for a human, this is great. It's not a content problem. It's a sort of translation problem between the content existing and the AI knowing what that content is. And if you go to the next slide, Jared, it's even more prominent on this particular one. I asked ChatGPT about this bootcamp training. Like, I clearly know in this case that this exists, but because it's an image, that image isn't accessible to the bots that are crawling this website for the purposes of AI. And it does not know, even though you can give an image to an AI and have it read it, that's not the level at which they read web pages just casually as they're gathering information about things. And so when you look at this as a human, this information is, it's visually very impactful. It's right there. It has all the basic info that you would need in the image. But if you ask AI, what it actually says is that the next session has not been publicly scheduled with dates yet, which is clearly not true. But that's the AI's best guess based on what it got out of the web page when it looked at it. And so that's the kind of thing that we are trying to solve by being really intentional about how we are labeling this information for AI. It's not that the content doesn't exist. It's that AI is not correctly interpreting it. And so it needs that little extra help in the form of schema markup is the technical way to do it. But the key point here is the content already exists. You just need to tell the AI about the content and help AI understand what's already there.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. Like, there's so many different AI surfaces. You've got Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, Grok. I mean, and it continues to grow and it continues to evolve. But there's this common theme and thread that I think goes through all of them, which is schema markup and because that's kind of that. I'm going to use the term universal language, but I'm just using that in the sense of this conversation. But like, if you were to have that schema markup in place and it's correctly put into place, it increases the likelihood that somebody's going to find you because that schema works with Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT, Perplexity, so on and so forth. So before I continue to go down that tangent and that trail of like the importance of schema, I want to make sure that everybody that's watching understands what schema is as well. I don't want to presume that everybody watching knows all of these things. So I want to find out if you both might be able to just kind of break it down into some plain language for me, because I'm not as intelligent as both of you. You're very, very smart. But I think it's an important time to maybe take a half step back and say, okay, we talk about schema markup a lot. What does it actually do? Like, what is schema markup, and why do you think that is the thing that closes that gap between what's on your site and what AI is finding when it visits? So whoever would like to go with that one, go for it.
Yeah, I can start with an analogy if you would like.
I love analogies. Go for it. I live for analogies.
So let's assume that I'm AI tool. I am JazzGPT, right? So if I am seeing
Did you say
the
Jazz GPT?
JazzGPT, that's
Oh,
in
that's
Google, just so
fantastic.
you know. So JazzGPT, and you are human beings, and this is an event, right? But I'm also reading this information at this moment. But the way how I read this information again is different, right? I would not understand that this is an event. I would not understand that these are, we are talking about schema markups. What's the date today? Anything, right? So in order for me to understand, there should be, let's say, a translator, interpreter, gesture interpreter, whatever. So I would need this to be interpreted to my language in structures, saying, "Hey, this is a live event by organizer is Yoko Co, right? And the topic is such and such, and today is the date is 23rd of April 2026, and and provide more information about who's Jared, who's Sarah, and and things like that. So I would need an extra labeling added in, into this content so that I can make sense of what's happening. So basically, schema markup is that interpretation language for me to be able to read what is happening here and to make sure that I understand that this is not a book, this is not a concert, this is not a PDF file, but this is a live stream, Yoko Co event.
And
Yeah.
from the technical side, it is code, but it's very simple code. It's just labels, pretty much. The main thing is there's an organization that this is a standard. As you mentioned, Jared, this is something that all of the AIs and search engines can interpret. It is a standard. There's information at schema.org that lists out like all of the possible things a thing can be labeled as. But essentially, it's just a set of pieces of code that say this thing right here is this. And so there's a lot of technical ways behind it and how you can do it and how you can automate it and that kind of thing. But it's truly just labels that happen in code where it's not visible to human readers, so it doesn't add anything to the website that is going to be distracting to the primary human audience. But it just says behind the scenes, this is a person, this is a title of a job title, this is contact information, this is an address, and it's just very, very specific, and it's kind of hierarchical. So you can say, if this is a document, well, what kind of document? What part of the document is this? And so what it does is, when you look at a website, there's, as Jazz mentioned earlier, you've got headers and footers, and you've got cookie notices, and you've got sidebars, and you've got, there's all this information. The schema markup just says this is what each piece of those things are. And so if it's looking at a web page and it's trying to get information about an event that's listed on the website, it can say, like, it can easily reason through the logic of, okay, this sidebar isn't relevant to this because I'm really just looking for this key information. So I'm just looking for this event information. And it's just a system of labels that happen in the code where the machines can get to it and the humans aren't distracted by it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Oh, go for it, Jess.
Yeah, sorry, just one thing to add also to Sarah's point, and also to manage the expectations correctly, that is working with AI, the visibility question is not replacement to SEO. So it's still up to Google to decide, right? Even if we put everything correctly and all the schema markups are added to all the pages, still Google will decide at the end of the day whether to rank this page well, high enough or not, because there are also other factors. Google also looks at, is the content, is it intentional? Is it useful? Does it have all the information? Is it crawlable? Is the technical sound, right? So even if we do the schema markup, there's still a lot of other things we need to make sure to be able for the SEO to rank well. But once our content is being suggested by Google, it will have all the details that's needed and useful.
A really good point, and it's very important to note that schema markup isn't replacement for good content, or it's not, it's that basically what you're doing is you're making it easier for it to evaluate your content. It still has to be really good content in order for it to serve any purpose in the world, right? So like if it's able to understand what it is, but it's not useful, then you're still not going to get a lot of value out of it. You're not going to get cited in AI answers. You're not going to get ranked on search engines or whatever. So this is definitely like, if you have a problem where you don't have good content, you have to solve that problem first.
Okay, so let's take a step back real quick, and it feels like there's a balance between, there's a technical side to this, but there's a lot of folks that maybe don't want to touch the code aspect of it, and they're like they're in the administrative side, or they're in the communication side, and going through, and as simplistic as it might sound in regards to, oh, it's a label, or it's a small change, for folks that don't spend a lot of time in the coding side of a website, it can be very daunting. And I want to maybe spend just a minute or two talking about, what does that mean for them? And they might, I mean, if they don't have a technology or a web team member, they can absolutely reach out to us. But if they do have somebody on their team that is over the website or understands websites to a good degree, what does that conversation look like between the web team and the administrative or communications, marketing, et cetera, et cetera?
Definitely, just sort of what we were talking about is that the content has to be solid before you worry about the AI understanding it. And it's definitely a leadership question, not a technical one. The technical piece is relatively straightforward. I mean, it's not nothing, but the hard part is always going to be figuring out like what the content is, which content matters. So start with that, is thinking through, how do people find you now? How would you like them to find you? What's the content that adds the most value to the lives of the people who are using your website? And think through like which pieces are the highest value pieces. For associations, a lot of times that's going to be your events and your conferences, your people, your leadership, and your flagship resources, the things that are the things that you are known for, the things that you've put a lot of time and effort into developing. Those are great places to start. But in terms of the conversation, it's really just leadership should be asking their web people, do we have structured data? Is this something, especially on these specific areas, on our events, on our key resources pages, what are we doing in terms of structured data? And if the answer is, I don't know, or no, like that's not, that's a fine place to be, because it gives you a clear direction, right? If you have this good content and they don't know that you have strong structure for it, that's something that you can relatively easily fix. And then if the answer is yes, like we have some basic things from an SEO plugin, check, whether it's just the default settings or whether it's the level that you want. And this is one of those things it's a fairly modest engagement as far as it goes. It's not a huge budget item or months of work. And it's usually something you're doing incrementally. You're picking like, what's the most important thing right now that we're not doing as well as we could? What can we do to make it a little better? It doesn't have to be like, and honestly, I wouldn't recommend doing like a huge project across the whole site necessarily to start. Pick the things that are like your highest leverage points and see how you're doing now, and see if there's something you can do to improve it a little bit.
Yeah. And I think that actually is a really good segue into how we like to end these conversations, which are easy, practical, actionable things that anybody can do if they are watching this. We are all aware that budgets are sometimes small and sometimes budgets are really big. And if there are things that your organization needs that maybe is outside of your scope of expertise or your team, absolutely reach out to us. Let us know. We would be happy to help you and support you and empower you. However, in that same vein of being able to provide some sort of guidance at $0 to the folks that are watching, are there any actionable, practical things that a communications manager or a brand new web designer that they're a volunteer on a nonprofit board, and they're like, hey, we need to update some stuff on the website because nobody's being able to find it because everybody's using Gemini now, or they're using AI. If they were to sit down for 10 minutes or something like that, what are some suggestions that you both have of, hey, try this out and this would be really helpful for you?
We have a simple slide, and this is just very basic, but I think it's a great place to start. And it's just, what are the questions that people have about your organization, and how does AI answer them right now? So I would say go to Google, type these in, just see what are the answers and how well do they fit with what you know to be reality, right? And then any other questions that people regularly ask about your organization or about your area. So, the first two here are specifically about the organization, but a lot of times people don't know the organization exists. So thinking through what questions you would like to be included in AI's answer for, and just asking and seeing where you are, figuring out that baseline of what AI knows about you now and whether you have a gap about that. And then when you address it, you can run those same questions again and see how things change over time. Like, that's a pretty straightforward thing. Jazz?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great point. Starting with the question is, I think, formulating the right question is already 50% of the solution, right? So asking, along with these questions, also asking, are we being intentional about our content, right? Intentional about the pages, right? If the page is event, then, we make sure that it has the correct data for it. If it's a resource page, if it's an article, blog post, if it's a people page, right? The question is, are we being intentional about the content of this page, right? If the answer is yes, then that's great. You already have 80% of the things. And most of the organizations we work with, they already have valuable content. So the content is there. Now it's about taking it and then filling in the gaps, right? And the gap is called, okay, how do we make it more visible so that we get the most out of it, the business value of it, right? So that low gap, filling in that schema markup, is actually low budget, low drama, but high impact work. And it's actually is a very easy thing, but starts with the right question. And yeah, I think with that question, I would leave this event with that question. Are we being intentional about our content?
I think it's a really smart. Look, your first time on here, and you're just dropping bombs like crazy with knowledge left and right.
What can I
Jazz GPT. I love that. Sarah, Jazz, thank you so much. I appreciate both of you and your skills and your talents and your time for today. If there is anybody watching this that has additional questions, if they would like a little bit more insight, like I mentioned before, drop your comments down in the comment field in YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook, and we'll get to those answers as quickly as possible. If you are an organization that might be needing some additional help with your website or some digital things or schema markups, feel free to reach out to us. Our website is yokoco.com. That's yokoco.com. And there's an easy little contact form. You can reach out to us. We'll get back to you and schedule some time to chat and figure out how we can help you the best. Other than that, Sarah, have a fantastic rest of your day. Jazz, I know it's super early where you're at, so good night, because you're probably going to bed, but we appreciate you giving some time today. So thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.